Captain Jessica Hayes stood motionless on the bridge of the U.S. Relentless, her steady gaze fixed on the primary viewing screen. The alien defense platform hung against the backdrop of stars, like an elaborate piece of Baroque architecture, all sweeping spires and ornamental flourishes that served no practical purpose. The corner of her mouth twitched slightly, the only outward sign of her amusement at such wasteful design philosophy. Incoming transmission from the defense platform. Captain. Lieutenant Sarah Fox Mitchell reported from her communications station, her fingers dancing across the haptic interface. They're broadcasting on all standard frequencies. Rather loudly, I might add. How very enthusiastic of them, Hayes remarked dryly. She squared her shoulders and nodded. Accept the transmission, Lieutenant. Let's meet our welcoming committee. The screen shifted to reveal a tall, aristocratic-looking alien. Its iridescent scales gleamed under the station's ambient lighting, and elaborate rank markings adorned its ceremonial armor. The beam's 4 eyes blinked in an unsynchronized pattern that Hayes' xenopsychology training identified as a sign of supposed superiority. Unknown vessel, the alien's translator rendered its melodic speech into English. You have entered the sovereign space of the Zarkax Confederation. I am Station Commander Vexthal. Power down your primitive engines and prepare to receive our guidance. We are willing to be merciful in accepting your people as a protectorate species. Hayes maintained her neutral expression, even as her tactical display quietly confirmed what the deep space probes had reported months ago. The station's weapon systems were precisely where intelligence had predicted, hidden behind those supposedly decorative spires. She let the silence stretch for 3 calculated seconds before responding. This is Captain Jessica Hayes of the United Earth ship Relentless. We appreciate your generous offer, Commander Vexthal. However, we are simply conducting a routine patrol of this sector. We have no intention of imposing upon your hospitality. Behind her, Commander James Havoc Wilson monitored his tactical station with predatory focus. His fingers rested near the weapons controls, but Hayes had given strict orders. They would not fire first. They didn't need to. Patrol. Vexthal's translator couldn't quite capture the mix of amusement and disdain in his voice. In that primitive vessel, my dear Captain, your fusion drives and metallic hull speak to your technological infancy. Surely you understand that it is in your best interest to accept our protection. Fascinating analysis of our capabilities, Commander. Hayes allowed herself a small smile. Though I wonder if your scans have fully penetrated our hull plating. We've found that certain materials can be rather difficult to analyze properly. The subtle challenge in her voice had its intended effect. On screen, one of Vexthal's subordinates hurriedly began adjusting their scanning frequencies. Hayes knew exactly what they would and wouldn't find. Lieutenant Commander Mike Mad Dog Rodriguez had spent weeks carefully layering the ship's systems to tell exactly the story they wanted the Zarkax to believe. Their active scanning just increased by 300%, Wilson reported quietly. They're focusing on our port and starboard weapon mounts, exactly as predicted. Hayes gave an almost imperceptible nod. The Zarkax were following the behavioral patterns that human xenopsychologists had anticipated. Their pride demanded they prove their technological superiority. Every second of scanning gave the Relentless's systems more data about their scanning frequencies and capabilities. I must insist, Vexthal's tone hardened slightly, that you power down your vessel and prepare for boarding. This is not a request, Captain Hayes. The Zarkax Confederation has guided dozens of emerging species to greatness. You would do well to accept your place in the natural order. The natural order? Hayes echoed, raising an eyebrow. An interesting concept, Commander. Humanity has some rather unique perspectives on natural order. Perhaps we should discuss them in detail. She glanced at her tactical display, noting the energy buildup in the station's neural compliance field emitters. Right on schedule. They're charging weapons, Wilson confirmed softly. Neural compliance field, just like the intelligence report suggested. Quantum analysis is recording everything. Very well. Commander Vexthal, Hayes said aloud, her voice carrying just a hint of resignation. If you insist on a demonstration, who are we to deny you the opportunity? She made a subtle gesture, and her crew activated the first layer of their carefully planned response. The real game was about to begin, and Hayes couldn't help but think that these Orcs had no idea they were playing chess with a grandmaster. The trap was set. Now it was time to let their overconfident opponents spring it. Ambassador Krelvan of the Zarkax Confederation prided himself on reading alien species. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he'd overseen the integration of dozens of primitive civilizations into the Confederation's embrace. Yet something about these humans made his scales itch. As you can see, Lieutenant Commander Mike Rodriguez explained, gesturing to the holographic display of the Relentless's engineering schematics, our fusion drive system is fairly straightforward. Nothing too exciting, I'm afraid. He scratched his beard, projecting an air of apologetic simplicity that made Krelvan's antennae twitch with suspicion. The ambassador's aide, Sub-Commander Nexthy, leaned forward, his analytical implants whirring as they processed the displayed information. These power distribution pathways seem unnecessarily complex for a vessel of this size, he noted, 4-fingered hand tracing a particular conduit path. Oh, that. Rodriguez chuckled, the sound carrying the right mix of embarrassment and pride. Yeah, we had to jury-rig some systems during construction. Budget constraints, you know. Not all of us can afford those beautiful quantum reactors you folks have. Krelvan watched the human engineer carefully. Everything about the man's demeanor suggested transparent honesty, which only heightened the ambassador's unease. In his experience, truly primitive species either cowered or blustered. They didn't maintain this peculiar blend of self-deprecation and quiet confidence. Your shield emitters, Nexthy continued, highlighting another section. They're arranged in an unusual lattice pattern, almost as if we didn't quite know what we were doing. Rodriguez finished with a self-effacing smile. Good eye, Sub-Commander. We're still working out the kinks in our shield geometry. First-generation technology, you understand. Captain Hayes stood at the back of the engineering bay, observing the exchange with those unnervingly steady human eyes. Krelvan had encountered predatory species before, but most advertised their nature openly. These humans, they felt like something else entirely. Ambassador, Nexthy whispered in the Zarkax's native tongue. His translator deactivated. Something isn't right. These power conduits, they're not inefficient, they're redundant. And look at their quantum shielding diagnostics. The energy patterns are too ordered for a supposedly primitive system. Commander Rodriguez, Krelvan interrupted smoothly, switching back to translated speech. Our preliminary scans indicated your vessel mass is roughly 300,000 metric tons. Yet these schematics suggest a significantly lighter structure. Perhaps there are sections you haven't shown us. Rodriguez exchanged a quick glance with Captain Hayes that lasted precisely 1.3 seconds. Krelvan's implants measured it automatically. Well, you got us there, Ambassador, the engineer admitted. We had to add some additional storage compartments after the initial design was complete. Nothing exciting. Mostly water reclamation and waste processing. Would you like to see those sections as well? That won't be necessary, Krelvan replied, noting how the human's heart rate hadn't fluctuated at all during his response. Either he was telling the truth or... The ambassador's train of thought was interrupted by a priority message from the defense platform. His optical implant displayed the text discreetly. Neural compliance field charged to full capacity. Awaiting your signal. Krelvan took one last look at the human vessel's schematics. Everything his civilization's sensors showed indicated a primitive but functional ship, built by an eager young species taking their first steps into the galaxy. Yet 3 centuries of diplomatic instincts screamed that he was missing something vital. Captain Hayes, he said finally, I believe we've seen enough. The Confederation appreciates your transparency, but we must insist on implementing standard protectorate protocols. For your own safety, of course. Of course, Hayes replied with that same measured calm. Though I should mention that Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez has a tendency to oversimplify things. He's brilliant with machinery, but sometimes he forgets to mention the more interesting modifications we've made. Rodriguez's expression didn't change, but Krelvan caught the subtle shift in his stance, from relaxed engineer to something altogether more martial. In that moment, the ambassador realized what had been bothering him all along. He wasn't looking at a primitive vessel's engine room. He was standing in a warship's combat information center, and he'd just given them everything they needed to know about Zarkak's scanning capabilities. Initiate the compliance field, he subvocalized to the defense platform. Maximum power. Hayes smiled then, and Krelvan finally recognized what she reminded him of. The apex predators of his homeworld, just before they struck. The neural compliance field struck the U.S. relentless like a tidal wave of psychic energy. On the bridge, Lieutenant Amanda "Ghost" Thompson's fingers flew across her electronic warfare console, her neural interface translating thought into action faster than physical movement could allow. 3 months of studying similar technology had prepared her for this moment. Neural field impact in 3, 2, 1, she announced, her voice carrying the focused calm of someone who had rehearsed this scenario countless times. Activating countermeasures. Captain Hayes gripped her command chair as the ship's quantum shields shifted frequency. Status report, Ghost. Their field is exactly what our deep space probes predicted, Captain. The modulation follows the same patterns we observed in the Centauri incident. Thompson's eyes darted across streams of data. Initiating Protocol Echo 7. On the main view screen, Ambassador Krelvan's expression shifted from confident superiority to confusion as his neural compliance field encountered something unprecedented. Resistance. Impossible. The ambassador hissed. No species has ever. Fascinating technology, Ambassador, Hayes interrupted, allowing herself a small smile. Though I notice you're using a rather outdated carrier wave for your neural interface, we found that particular frequency band problematic during our early experiments. The bridge crew maintained their positions as Thompson's countermeasures went to work. The lieutenant had earned her call sign Ghost for her ability to turn electronic warfare systems against their users without leaving a trace of her methods. Neural pattern analysis complete, Thompson reported. Their field is attempting to adapt, exactly as expected. Permission to initiate Phase 2. Granted, Hayes nodded. Show them why we let them scan us so thoroughly. Thompson's fingers danced across her console, reversing field polarity. Initiating quantum feedback loop. Now. The effect was immediate. On the view screen, the Zarkak's bridge crew staggered as their own neural compliance field rebounded through their neural interfaces. Not enough to harm. Hayes had been explicit about that, but enough to demonstrate the vulnerability of their supposedly superior technology. How? Ambassador Krelvan steadied himself against a console. Our neural compliance technology is beyond any known counter. Known to you, perhaps, Hayes replied. Lieutenant Thompson, status of our quantum transmission. Data stream is stable, Captain. Earth Command is receiving our full analysis of their neural compliance systems. The quantum entanglement array is performing perfectly. They have no way to detect or interrupt the transmission. Commander Wilson spoke up from tactical. Captain, I'm detecting power buildup in their weapon systems. They're preparing to switch to conventional weapons. Right on schedule, Hayes nodded. Ambassador, before you give the order to fire, you should know that we've been analyzing your weapon systems since we arrived. Every moment your neural compliance field was active gave us more data about your technological capabilities. Lieutenant Thompson is quite talented at multitasking. Thompson allowed herself a small grin as she continued her work. Their entire command and control network is based on the same neural interface technology, Captain. They've never encountered a species advanced enough to exploit that vulnerability. Their arrogance made them predictable. The ambassador's scales shifted color, a sign of deep distress, according to their xenobiology briefings. You You planned this. The primitive systems we detected were exactly what we wanted you to see. Hayes finished. Your scanning frequencies were designed to penetrate standard metamaterial cloaking, so we gave your sensors something else to focus on. Every flaw you detected was carefully crafted to draw your attention away from our real capabilities. Receiving targeting data from their weapon systems, Wilson reported. Their targeting computers are quite sophisticated, Captain. It would be a shame if someone had accessed them through their neural network. Hayes leaned forward in her chair. Ambassador, I'm going to offer you a choice. You can either power down your weapons and have a civilized discussion about the true balance of power in this sector, or Lieutenant Thompson can demonstrate how thoroughly we've compromised your neural interface network. I should warn you, she's been looking forward to testing her latest algorithms. Thompson's fingers hovered over her console, her expression reminiscent of a mathematician contemplating a particularly interesting puzzle. The fate of the Zarkak's fleet hung in the balance, their supposedly superior technology turned into a vulnerability by human ingenuity and careful planning. Time to choose, Ambassador, Hayes said softly. The next move in this dance is yours. Ambassador Krelvan made his choice with typical Zarkak's pride. The drone swarms launched from the defense platform in elegant, spiraling patterns, a deadly dance that had overwhelmed countless civilizations before. Commander James Havoc Wilson watched them approach on his tactical display, his expression reminiscent of a chess master studying an opponent's predictable opening move. Drone launch detected, Wilson reported calmly. Counting 300 units, deployed in their ceremonial spiral of dominance formation. How very traditional of them. Captain Hayes nodded, her posture relaxed. Time to show them something new, Commander. Enable combat learning protocols. Enabling now, Wilson's fingers danced across his console. Defense grid online. Quantum targeting matrix active. Permission to engage. Granted. Let's give them their first lesson in human warfare. The space around the U.S. Relentless erupted in precise bursts of energy as the ship's point defense grid engaged. Each shot struck with surgical precision, the targeting algorithms adapting and improving with every drone destroyed. There was nothing flashy about the display, no wasted energy, no decorative patterns, just ruthless efficiency. First wave analysis complete, Wilson announced. Their drone AI uses a quantum-based swarm intelligence. Impressive, but predictable once you understand the underlying patterns. Adapting our countermeasures now. On the main view screen, Ambassador Krelvan watched in growing horror as his prestigious drone fleet encountered something unprecedented. An enemy that learned faster than the swarm could adapt. Each destroyed drone provided data that made the next kill more efficient. Impossible, the ambassador whispered. The swarm consciousness cannot be predicted. The patterns are too complex. Complex isn't the same as unpredictable, Ambassador, Hayes interrupted. Commander Wilson spent 6 months studying swarm intelligence patterns. Your drones are excellent at adapting to conventional defenses, but they've never encountered a defense system that evolves faster than they do. Wilson's display highlighted new tactical data. Second wave incoming. They've altered their attack pattern, switching to a triple helix approach, updating our response algorithms. Efficiency has increased by 23%. The space around the Relentless became a graveyard of broken drones, each one destroyed with increasing precision. There was an artistry to it, but not the kind the Zarkaks appreciated. This was the art of pure function, of mathematics translated into deadly accuracy. Sir, one of the Zarkak's tactical officers reported, the human vessel's targeting efficiency is increasing exponentially. They're not just destroying the drones. They're learning from each engagement. Analyzing drone debris now, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez reported from engineering. Their quantum processors are quite sophisticated. Shame they never considered how much data could be gathered from their destroyed units. We're updating our database with every drone we disable. Hayes leaned forward in her chair. You should know, Ambassador, that we're currently operating at 30% of our defensive capability. Commander Wilson prefers to learn about new opponents gradually, gives him more time to analyze their tactics. Captain, Wilson interjected, they're preparing to launch their reserve drone squadrons, detecting new energy signatures. These appear to be their elite units. The Golden Guard, the ambassador said, a note of desperate pride in his voice. Our most advanced combat drones. Their neural networks are based on the combined experience of 1,000 years of warfare. Hayes allowed herself a small smile. 1,000 years of warfare against opponents who think like you do. Commander Wilson, show them what happens when those drones encounter human combat logic. The elite drones launched in a dazzling display of coordinated movement, their golden hulls gleaming in the starlight. They moved like a single organism, their patterns so complex that they appeared random to the untrained eye. Wilson's hands moved across his tactical console with practiced precision. Multiple attack vectors identified. Their coordination is impressive, but their base programming reveals several exploitable patterns. Initiating Protocol Delta 9. The Relentless's defense grid shifted, its response changing from reactive to predictive. Energy beams struck empty points in space, destroying drones milliseconds before they arrived at their calculated positions. The Golden Swarm's elegant dance turned into chaos as their own complex patterns became predictable weaknesses. How many tactical officers do you have? The ambassador demanded, watching his elite units fall. No single mind could counter our swarm so effectively. Just one, Hayes replied. Commander Wilson prefers to work alone. He says it helps him focus on the pure mathematics of combat. Would you like to see what happens when he increases power to 40%? Earth Command, this is U.S. Relentless. Lieutenant Sarah Fox Mitchell's voice carried just the right amount of strain. We've encountered significant resistance at the border checkpoint, requesting immediate support. Her performance was flawless. The subtle crack in her voice, the slight tremor in her words, even the carefully calculated pause between sentences. Ambassador Krulvan's antennae twitched as his neural interfaces intercepted the transmission. Finally, a sign of weakness from these insufferably calm humans. His tactical officers were already analyzing the communication frequencies, ready to decrypt any hidden messages. Captain Hayes watched the ambassador's reaction with quiet amusement. Lieutenant Mitchell, she said casually, I believe our friends are enjoying your performance. Perhaps they'd appreciate an encore. Mitchell's lips curved into a subtle smile. Certainly, Captain. Transmitting on all standard frequencies, she cleared her throat, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the perfect blend of military discipline and underlying fear. Command, be advised. Zarkak's forces have demonstrated advanced neural weaponry. Our countermeasures are holding, but we're not sure for how long. Requesting tactical analysis and support. Commander Wilson glanced up from his tactical display. They're focusing 60% of their computational power on analyzing our transmission patterns, just as predicted. Of course they are. Hayes nodded. The lieutenant's quite convincing when she wants to be. How many channels are they monitoring now? All 7 of the standard human emergency frequencies, Wilson reported. They haven't found the quantum channels yet. Not that they could. Dr. Jackson's entanglement communicator doesn't leave any traces to find. The ambassador's scales shifted color as his staff worked frantically to decode the seemingly desperate transmissions. Something wasn't right. These humans had countered every Zarkak's advantage with insulting ease, yet now they were calling for help. Interesting choice of frequencies you're using, Hayes commented to the ambassador. Your quantum decryption algorithms are impressive, but they're designed to break conventional encryption. Tell me, has your civilization discovered quantum entanglement communication yet? Krulvan's eyes widened slightly, the first genuine reaction he'd shown. Quantum entanglement communication is theoretically impossible. The uncertainty principle was a fascinating puzzle to solve. Hayes interrupted. Lieutenant Mitchell, please show the ambassador what real human communication looks like. Mitchell's fingers danced across her console. Displaying now, Captain. Ongoing quantum transmission log, complete with full tactical analysis of Zarkak's capabilities, defensive configurations, and neural network vulnerabilities. We've been transmitting since we arrived. The main screen filled with scrolling data, detailed scans of Zarkak's technology, complete analysis of their neural compliance fields, comprehensive breakdowns of their drone control systems. Every weakness, every vulnerability, every flaw in their supposedly superior technology, all transmitted instantaneously across light years without any possibility of interception. Impossible, one of the Zarkak's technical officers whispered. They've been analyzing everything, every system, every response, every countermeasure. You didn't really think we came here alone, did you? Hayes asked mildly. Earth Command has been receiving our analysis in real time. Every drone you launched, every scan you performed, every neural attack you attempted, all of it carefully documented and analyzed. Your entire tactical doctrine is being dissected by our strategists as we speak. Mitchell's console chimed softly. Captain, receiving acknowledgement from command. The fleet is ready to proceed with Phase 2 on your order. The fleet. The ambassador's voice carried the first hint of real fear. What fleet? Our long-range sensors show no other human vessels within 50 light years. Hayes smiled that predator's smile again. Ambassador, did you really think we'd send our most primitive-looking ship to make first contact without backup? Lieutenant Mitchell wasn't calling for help. She was confirming that our forces were in position. Your sensors don't show any other ships because we didn't want them to. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Every transmission they'd intercepted, every sign of weakness they'd detected, had been carefully crafted theater. The real communication had been happening on channels they couldn't even detect, let alone decrypt. Captain, Wilson reported with clinical precision, multiple quantum signatures detected. The fleet is decloaking now. Hayes nodded, her expression almost sympathetic. Time to show you what a real human battle group looks like, Ambassador. I do hope you're taking notes. This will be on the test. Space rippled like disturbed water as the quantum distortion fields collapsed. The U.S. Normandy emerged first, its midnight black hull absorbing starlight rather than reflecting it. Admiral Marcus Steele Richardson stood on his command deck, watching as his battle group revealed itself with military precision. All ships, Combat Formation Delta. Richardson's voice carried the weight of decades of command experience. The Relentless has done her part. Time to show the Zarkaks how humanity fights when we're not playing nice. The U.S. Patton materialized next, its aggressive profile bristling with kinetic strike capabilities. The U.S. Sherman followed, its electronic warfare arrays already probing the Zarkaks' defenses. Finally, the U.S. Nimitz appeared, surrounded by its own screen of advanced combat drones, sleek, predatory machines that made the Zarkaks' golden swarm look like children's toys. On the Relentless's bridge, Captain Hayes watched the ambassador's reaction with professional interest. Admiral Richardson sends his compliments, Ambassador. He apologizes for the delay, but proper tactical positioning takes time, even with quantum drives. Impossible, Krelvon whispered, his scales pale with shock. Our sensor nets cover every approach vector. The energy signatures alone would have been detected if we used conventional drives, Hayes agreed. Fortunately, Commander Rodriguez's quantum propulsion systems don't leave much of an energy wake. You're familiar with quantum mechanics, Ambassador. Sometimes things just appear where they're supposed to be. The Zarkak's tactical display erupted with warnings as it finally processed the capabilities of the human fleet. Each ship represented a different aspect of human military doctrine, refined to perfection. Multiple targeting locks detected, Wilson reported calmly. The Patton's kinetic strike systems are painting every weapons platform in the sector. Sherman's electronic warfare suite is mapping their entire defense grid. Nimitz's drone squadrons are in position to counter any possible response. Admiral Richardson's image appeared on the main view screen, his silver hair and weathered features presenting the perfect image of human military authority. Ambassador Krelvon, I believe Captain Hayes has already demonstrated our technological capabilities. Now, would you like to see how we coordinate our forces when we're actually trying to win? The Zarkak's command staff watched in horror as their tactical displays showed the true extent of human military coordination. Each ship moved in perfect synchronization, covering the other's theoretical weaknesses, presenting an interlocking defense that left no blind spots. The Patton is signaling ready, Admiral, Hayes reported. Colonel Jung's kinetic strike teams are awaiting your order. The Sherman reports full spectrum dominance, Mitchell added. Commander Parker has already mapped 90% of their communication networks. Nimitz drone squadrons in attack formation, Wilson continued. Captain Rodriguez, the other Rodriguez, sir, reports all units showing green. Richardson nodded, his expression almost gentle. You see, Ambassador, each of our ships specializes in a different form of warfare. The Patton's crew trains exclusively in kinetic strike operations. The Sherman's electronic warfare capabilities make your neural compliance field look like a child's first computer program. The Nimitz carries drone systems that learn and adapt faster than organic minds can think. And the Normandy? Krelvon asked, unable to hide his dread at the answer. Coordinates it all. Richardson smiled. My ship's quantum computers can process combat information and update tactical plans faster than light can travel between our vessels. Every ship, every weapon, every system working in perfect harmony. You might want to take notes. This is what real military coordination looks like. The Admiral's smile faded slightly. Now you have exactly 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare for real diplomatic discussions. If you don't, I'm going to give Captain Hayes permission to demonstrate why we call her the chess master. She's been playing very nice so far. Ambassador, you really don't want to see what happens when she decides to play to win. Hayes allowed herself a small grin. Admiral, I believe Commander Wilson's combat analysis is complete. With your permission, I'd like to demonstrate our solution to their ceremonial defense formation. It's quite elegant, really, like solving a particularly interesting math problem. The bridge fell silent as the ambassador faced his moment of truth. Around his station, centuries of Zarkak's military doctrine were being systematically dismantled by an enemy that had planned for every possible response before they'd even made contact. Richardson checked his chronometer. 20 seconds, Ambassador. What's it going to be? Ambassador Krelvon's pride won out over his judgment. With 2 seconds remaining in Admiral Richardson's countdown, he gave the order that would become legendary in Zarkak's military history. Launch everything. Captain Hayes didn't even flinch as the space around them erupted with weapons fire. Right on schedule, she murmured. Commander Wilson, initiate the Hayes Gambit. Executing now, Captain. Wilson's fingers danced across his tactical console with practiced precision. All ships synchronized. Combat solutions uploaded. The human fleet moved like a single organism, each ship executing its role in a carefully choreographed battle plan. The U.S. Patton's kinetic strike platforms engaged with surgical precision, targeting weapons arrays with calculated force. Enough to disable, never to destroy. Sherman beginning electronic warfare sweep, Lieutenant Mitchell reported, her voice carrying professional satisfaction. Commander Parker's systems are integrating with our quantum network. Total spectrum dominance in 3, 2, 1. Across the Zarkak's fleet, control systems flickered and died. Weapons platforms went dark. Communication networks dissolved into quantum static. Yet not a single life support system was touched. A demonstration of control so precise it bordered on artistic. Nimitz drone squadrons executing containment pattern Delta, Wilson announced. Captain Rodriguez reports optimal combat efficiency. Their remaining Golden Swarm units are being educated. On the tactical display, the Nimitz's combat drones moved with predatory grace, herding the Zarkak's elite units into a complex three-dimensional pattern. It wasn't just combat. It was instruction through demonstration, showing the aliens exactly how outclassed their best technology had become. "Admiral," Hayes called out, requesting permission to demonstrate Protocol Omega-7. Richardson's image nodded. "Granted, Captain. Show them why Earth Command chose you for this mission." Hayes stood from her command chair, her posture relaxed but alert. "Ambassador, you're about to witness something that took us decades to perfect. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, power up the quantum field generators." "Fields active, Captain," Rodriguez reported from engineering. "Quantum probability matrices aligned. Ready on your mark." The ambassador watched in mounting horror as space itself seemed to ripple around the Relentless. What are you doing?" "Changing the rules," Hayes replied simply. "You see, while your civilization was perfecting neural compliance fields, we were learning to manipulate quantum probability itself. Commander Wilson, if you would." Wilson's hands moved in a complex pattern across his console. Around the Zarkax fleet, quantum fields shifted and realigned. Weapons that had been charged and ready to fire found themselves suddenly depleted. Shield generators that had been at full power cycled into maintenance mode. Not through electronic warfare or conventional combat, but through the precise manipulation of quantum probability. "Impossible," one of the Zarkax scientists whispered. "You can't. Reality doesn't work that way." "Reality works however you can convince it to work," Hayes corrected. "We learned that lesson early in our development. Your civilization built incredible technology, Ambassador, but you never questioned the fundamental rules of the universe itself. We did, and then we learned to change those rules when they didn't suit our purposes." The Normandy's quantum computers coordinated the fleet's movements with picosecond precision. Each ship demonstrated a different aspect of human military superiority, not through overwhelming force, but through absolute control. "Final containment achieved," Wilson reported. "All Zarkax combat units have been neutralized. 0 casualties on either side." Hayes turned to face the ambassador directly. "This is how humanity wages war, Ambassador. Not through brute force or intimidation, but through understanding. We studied your civilization for months before making contact. We learned your tactics, your technology, your thought processes, and then we developed countermeasures for everything you might do." Admiral Richardson's voice carried across the quantum link. "The question now, Ambassador, is whether you're ready to have a real diplomatic discussion. One between equals, without the pretense of superiority on either side." The bridge fell silent as the ambassador surveyed his tactical displays. Every weapon disabled, every defense neutralized, every advantage stripped away, and not a single life lost. A demonstration of power so complete that it transcended mere military victory. "Perhaps," Krelvon said slowly, his scales shifting to the color of submission, "it is time for the Zarkax Confederation to learn some new protocols." Hayes smiled, finally allowing herself to relax slightly. "Commander Wilson, power down quantum fields. Lieutenant Mitchell, prepare a diplomatic channel. I believe the ambassador and Admiral Richardson have much to discuss." 3 months after the Hayes Gambit, the observation deck of the Sol System War College hummed with quiet activity. Ambassador Krelvon stood at the panoramic windows, his iridescent scales reflecting Earth's sunlight as he watched a training exercise unfold in high orbit. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Captain Hayes stepped up beside him, 2 cups of coffee in hand. She offered one to the ambassador, who had developed quite a taste for the human beverage during his tenure as the first Zarkax instructor at the college. "Indeed," Krelvon agreed, accepting the cup with a gesture that would have been unthinkably casual for a Zarkax diplomat just months ago. "Though I must admit, watching Commander Wilson train our joint drone squadron still brings back rather uncomfortable memories." Hayes smiled, noting how the ambassador's scales had shifted to a relaxed blue-green hue. "The best lessons often do. How are your students adapting to the new combat doctrine?" Below them, human and Zarkax drones wove through a complex series of maneuvers. Gone were the ceremonial patterns and displays of dominance. In their place was something new, a fusion of Zarkak's precision and human pragmatism. Better than I expected, Krelvan admitted. Though some of the older instructors still struggle with the concept of efficient design over aesthetic appeal, centuries of tradition are not easily set aside. Change never is. Hayes nodded. But I've seen your latest designs. The new Zarkak's vessels are quite impressive, all that elegance channeled into functional beauty. The ambassador's antennae twitched with pride. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez has been instrumental in that regard. His insights into quantum propulsion theory have helped us understand that efficiency itself can be an art form. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the exercise continue. On the training field below, a mixed group of human and Zarkak's cadets were running combat simulations under Lieutenant Thompson's watchful eye. They're using the neural interfaces differently now, Hayes observed. More subtle. Yes, Krelvan agreed. Your Lieutenant Thompson showed us that our greatest strength was also our greatest vulnerability. We had become so reliant on neural technology that we forgot its limitations. Now, he gestured to the cadets, now we teach balance. Technology and instinct. Power and control. A flash of light drew their attention skyward. The U.S. Normandy appeared in orbit, its quantum fields rippling as it completed a precision jump. Admiral Richardson's new flagship still carried the scars from the Proxima campaign. Badges of honor from the joint human-Zarkak's defense that had saved both their species from a greater threat. The Council of Elders meets tomorrow, Krelvan said quietly. They will be voting on the proposed military exchange program. 5 years ago, the very idea of allowing other species to serve on our vessels would have been unthinkable. Hayes sipped her coffee. And now we understand that strength comes in many forms. The Zarkaks taught the galaxy how to project power through presence. Humanity. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Humanity taught us how to wield power with precision. Both lessons are valuable. Below them, the training exercise concluded. Human and Zarkak's cadets mingled freely, discussing tactics and sharing insights. The rigid hierarchy that had defined Zarkak's society for millennia was evolving into something new, something stronger. Captain. Krelvan turned to face her directly, his scales shifting to the formal colors of his office. I never properly thanked you. Hayes raised an eyebrow. For defeating your fleet. For showing us respect. The ambassador corrected. You could have destroyed us. Instead, you chose to teach us. The Hayes Gambit is now required reading at both our academies, but not for the reasons one might expect. Oh, it demonstrates that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to. Your victory was complete precisely because you chose to make it a lesson rather than a conquest. Hayes smiled, watching as the next group of cadets began their exercises. The best victories are the ones that make enemies into allies. Ambassador, I learned that at this very academy. She gestured to the training field. Now we get to teach it together. Krelvan's scales rippled with colors of agreement and pride. To the future, then, Captain Hayes. To the future, Ambassador. She raised her coffee cup in salute. And to all the lessons yet to come.